The water was cold, colder than I expected for a Los Angeles afternoon. It filled my lungs like liquid concrete, heavy and unforgiving. I clawed at the surface, fingers breaking through only to slip back down. Above me, through the rippling blue, I saw him, David Pierce, my husband of 18 years, the man who once swore I was his entire world, standing at the edge of the infinity pool, hands in his pockets, watching me drown with the same detached expression he wore in court when dismantling a witness. "Stop pretending." "Hannah," he said, voice calm, almost bored. "I gave you 18 years of the life you always wanted. That's more than enough." Beside him stood Vanessa, my cousin, the girl we took in when she was 16 and orphaned. Her hand rested lightly on his arm, possessive now, no longer hiding. Our son Tyler, 17 and already taller than both of them, looked down at me with something close to relief. "Don't worry about her, Dad," he said. "Aunt Vanessa's the one who's always been there for us. Mom would have wanted you happy." I tried to scream, but the water swallowed it. My chest burned, my vision tunneled. The last thing I saw was David turning away, Vanessa leaning into him, Tyler following without a backward glance. Then everything went black. I woke to the rhythmic beep of machines and the sharp smell of antiseptic. Fluorescent lights stung my eyes. A nurse adjusted an IV line, murmuring something about miracles. The doctor came in later, chart in hand, explaining I'd suffered a massive stroke at home, found unconscious by the pool, revived after minutes without oxygen. 3 days in a coma. They called it a near-death experience. But I knew better. Because when I opened my eyes, I wasn't looking at the ceiling of our Beverly Hills mansion or the concerned face of the housekeeper who'd called 911. I was looking at the sterile white walls of Cedars-Sinai, room 412, on the exact morning David Pierce had walked into my hospital room 18 years ago with a bouquet of white roses and a proposal I couldn't refuse. I was 32 again. The stroke hadn't happened yet. The betrayal hadn't happened yet. Tyler hadn't been born yet. And David, perfect, brilliant, ruthless David, hadn't broken me yet. The door opened. There he was, holding those same white roses, wearing the same navy suit, the same charming half smile that once made my heart race. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his green eyes warm with concern. He said softly, crossing the room in 3 strides. "You scared the hell out of me." He sat on the edge of the bed, took my hand, brushed a kiss across my knuckles. "I thought I'd lost you." I stared at him. The hand holding mine was steady, strong. The voice was tender. The eyes lied beautifully. I smiled back, slow and careful. "I'm right here, Alex." But instinct, something had shifted forever. The woman who once melted at that touch was gone, drowned in a pool she hadn't even fallen into yet. This time, I remembered everything. This time, I wasn't blind. This time, I would not let them win. They released me from the hospital 2 days later with a clean bill of health and a warning about stress. David insisted on carrying my bag to the car himself, opening the door, buckling my seatbelt like I was made of glass. The drive back to the house in the hills was quiet except for the soft jazz on the radio and his occasional glances to check if I was okay. I watched the city slide by palm trees, billboards, the endless California sun, and felt nothing. Not fear, not grief, just clarity. The house looked exactly as I remembered from that first year of marriage, modern glass walls, white furniture, abstract art David had chosen because it impressed clients. He led me inside, arm around my waist, murmuring about rest and recovery. The staff hovered, offering tea, smoothies, anything I wanted. I thanked them, went upstairs, and locked the bedroom door behind me. Then I got to work. First, the safe in his study. The combination was still Tyler's birthday, the one that hadn't happened yet. Inside, passports, cash, a burner phone I didn't recognize. I photographed everything with my phone, put it all back exactly as found. Next, his laptop. He'd always been careless with passwords around me, trusting I'd never look. I logged in as him, opened his email, and scrolled back 5 years into the future I already knew. There they were, hundreds of messages between David and Vanessa. Intimate, planning, calculating. She fed him ideas I'd shared with her in confidence over late-night wine, ideas he later presented as his own to secure partnerships that built his reputation as the city's sharpest corporate attorney. One email from her, dated 3 years from now. She suspects nothing. Keep her happy and busy with charity events. By the time she realizes, it'll be too late. Another from him. You're the only one who truly understands me. We'll fix this. Permanently. I copied the entire thread to an encrypted drive. But the real discovery came deeper in his deleted folder. Medical records forwarded from a private clinic in Switzerland. Diagnosis pancreatic cancer, stage 3, prognosis poor, treatment ongoing, experimental, highly secretive. He hadn't told anyone, not his partners, not Vanessa, not even me in that future life until it was far too late. David Pierce, the man who controlled every room he walked into, was terrified of dying. And in his fear, he'd chosen Vanessa because she made him feel young, vital, in control. She flattered him, fed his ego, promised devotion without the weight of a real marriage, a real family. I closed the laptop and sat back in his leather chair. For the first time since waking up, I felt something close to pity, not for the man he'd become, but for the weakness driving him to destroy everything good in his life. That night, he threw an engagement party at the house, technically a welcome home celebration, but everyone knew what it really meant. The ring on my finger was already there, a 5-carat diamond he'd given me the night I said yes 18 years ago. Tonight, the house filled with his colleagues, my few remaining friends, and family. Vanessa arrived late, all wide eyes and concern. "Hannah," she breathed, pulling me into a hug that smelled of vanilla and lies. "Thank God you're okay. I was so scared." Over her shoulder, I saw David watching us, his smile tight. He lifted his glass in a silent toast. To us. To forever. I hugged her back, just hard enough to feel her stiffen. "I'm fine, Vanessa." Better than ever. Later, on the terrace overlooking the city lights, she found me alone. "You seem different," she said, sipping champagne, studying me with that fake sweet tilt of her head, more distant. I met her gaze. Do I maybe nearly dying change as a person? She laughed softly. "Don't be dramatic. You're here. You're safe. You have everything." A pause. "You have him." I smiled. "Yes, I do." But not for long. Inside, David was laughing with a senior partner, arm around my waist like nothing had changed. His fingers pressed lightly against my side, possessive, reassuring, practiced. I leaned into him just enough to sell the performance. Then I excused myself, went to the powder room, and texted an anonymous tip to a gossip site I knew would bite sources close to power. Couple David Pierce and Hannah Harper hint at trouble in paradise, whispers of a third party very close to home. I hit send, washed my hands, and looked at myself in the mirror. The woman staring back wasn't broken anymore. She was awake. The gossip site published the tip at dawn. By the time I came downstairs for coffee, David's phone was already buzzing nonstop on the kitchen island. He stood at the counter in a crisp white shirt, scrolling with a tightening jaw, the muscle in his cheek twitching the way it always did when a case started slipping. He glanced up as I poured myself a cup. "Someone's stirring trouble," he said, voice light but eyes sharp. "Anonymous source claiming I'm involved with someone close to you." He watched my face for a reaction. Ridiculous, of course. I sipped slowly. People love drama, especially when it involves power couples. He set the phone down, came around the island, and wrapped his arms around me from behind. Let them talk. We know the truth. I leaned back into him just enough to keep the illusion alive. "Do we?" He stiffened for half a second, then kissed the top of my head and changed the subject to breakfast plans. But the seed was planted. That evening, he booked us a corner table at the new rooftop restaurant in Beverly Hills, the kind of place where deals are made and secrets are traded. He invited 2 senior partners and their wives ostensibly to celebrate my recovery, really to show the world we were solid. Vanessa came too, as family, seated across from me in a red dress that caught every flash of light. Conversation flowed around cases won, market shifts, upcoming galas. Then one of the wives, tipsy on her 3rd martini, leaned forward with a conspiratorial smile.
So tell us. David, is there any truth to those nasty little rumors floating around?
The table went quiet. David laughed smoothly. You know how this town works. Someone sees me having lunch with a female associate, and suddenly I'm having an affair. Vanessa jumped in, voice sweet. Poor Alex. People are so quick to judge, especially when they're jealous of what you two have. She reached over and squeezed my hand. Right. Hannah.
I met her eyes. Jealousy does strange things to people.
David shot me a quick look, warning or curiosity. I couldn't tell. Then Vanessa, ever the helpful one, launched into a story about a new strategy she'd been brainstorming for his firm's biggest client. Word for word, it was the expansion plan I'd sketched out for her over coffee 6 months ago, thinking I was helping family. David's face lit up. That's brilliant, Vanessa. Exactly the angle we need. I set my fork down. Funny, I suggested something almost identical to you last year. Alex, you said it was too risky. The table froze again. Vanessa's smile faltered. David recovered first. Did you? I must have forgotten. Great minds, I suppose. I tilted my head, or borrowed one's. Vanessa laughed nervously. Hannah, you're teasing.
David changed the subject to dessert, but the damage was done. The partners exchanged glances. One of the wives raised an eyebrow at me, respect or suspicion. Hard to say.
Later, in the car, David gripped the wheel tighter than necessary. What was that about? Just making conversation. He pulled over on a quiet stretch of Mulholland, turned to me. If something's bothering you, say it. Don't play games in front of my colleagues. I looked out at the city lights below. I'm not the one playing games. Alex. Silence stretched between us. Finally, he reached for my hand. You're still recovering. Maybe you're reading too much into things. Maybe, I said. Or maybe I'm finally seeing clearly. He started the car again without another word. 2 nights later, Vanessa called, voice trembling. We need to talk. Alone. We met at a small cafe on Abbot Kinney, outdoor tables hidden behind foliage. She arrived in oversized sunglasses, even though the sun had set. You're scaring me, she said without preamble. Those rumors, the way you looked at me at dinner, what's going on with you? I stirred my espresso. What's going on with you and my fiancé? She went very still. Nothing. I love you both. You're my family. Family doesn't sleep with each other's husbands. Her cup rattled against the saucer. You're wrong. Am I? I slid my phone across the table. Screen open to a screenshot of one of their emails. Tame enough to deny. Intimate enough to sting. Her face drained of color. Where did you get that? Doesn't matter. What matters is what you're going to do now. She leaned forward, voice low and desperate. It wasn't planned. It just happened. He's under so much pressure at work. And you were always so perfect, so untouchable. I made him feel needed. I almost laughed. And you thought stealing my life would make you feel needed too? Tears filled her eyes. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did. And you will again if I let you. She reached for my arm. Please, Hannah, for the sake of what we used to be, let this go. I pulled away. I'm done letting things go. I stood, left cash on the table, and walked out into the night. Behind me, I heard her quiet sob, but I didn't look back. The divorce papers were filed quietly on a Monday morning. David was served at his office downtown. He called me 17 times before noon. I let them all go to voicemail. He came home early, tie loosened, face unreadable. Is this really what you want?
I was packing a suitcase, only my things. Nothing we'd bought together. It's what I should have done years ago.
He watched me fold clothes. We can fix this. Counseling, time apart, whatever you need. There's no fixing betrayal, Alex. He stepped closer. You think you know everything. You don't. I zipped the case. I know enough. That night, the story broke wide open. I'd leaked a carefully curated selection of emails and bank transfers money David had funneled to Vanessa under the guise of family support. Not enough to ruin him yet, just enough to make the headlines bleed. The next morning, his biggest client pulled out. By afternoon, 2 more followed. We met in court for the preliminary hearing, Los Angeles Superior Court. Fluorescent lights and polished wood, cameras outside like vultures. David looked impeccable in a charcoal suit, but his eyes were bloodshot. Vanessa sat in the gallery, pale and clutching a tissue. My attorney laid out the evidence in calm, devastating detail: the affair, the embezzled funds, the pattern of deception. 3 pieces locked together perfectly dated messages, security footage from a hotel David used for late meetings, and a transfer of $200,000 to an account in Vanessa's name the week I was in the hospital. David's lawyer argued I'd fabricated it all during a post-stroke psychotic episode. The judge didn't look convinced. During recess, David cornered me in the hallway. "You're destroying everything we built." "No," I said. "You did that when you chose her?" His voice dropped. "I'm sick. Hannah, really sick. I didn't want you to watch me die." The hallway noise faded. For a moment, I saw the fear in his eyes, raw, human. "Why tell me now?" "Because I thought if you knew, you might stay, out of pity, if nothing else." I studied him. "You still don't get it. I wouldn't have left because you were dying. I'm leaving because you stopped living for us a long time ago." I walked away. But victory came with a cost. In my rush to expose the hotel footage, I'd relied on a tip from David's former assistant, Mia, a young single mother who'd been loyal to me in the future I remembered. The leak got her fired. She called me crying, unable to pay rent. I sent money anonymously, but the guilt stayed. Then David struck back. A tabloid published medical records, real ones, showing I'd been prescribed heavy painkillers after the stroke. The headline screamed, "Unstable wife invents affair to mask addiction." Comments online called me crazy, bitter, dangerous. My speaking invitations dried up. A non-profit board I'd chaired for years asked me to step down until things settle. Friends stopped calling. For the first time since waking up, I felt the ground shift under me. I sat alone in my new apartment in Santa Monica, ocean wind rattling the windows, and wondered if revenge was turning me into someone I didn't recognize. David showed up drunk at 2 a.m, pounding on the door until security came. Through the peephole, I saw him swaying, tie gone, shirt untucked. "I'm sorry," he shouted. "I was scared. I made terrible choices. But I loved you. I still do." I didn't open the door. I pressed my forehead to the cool wood and whispered to myself, "Don't soften. Not now." But part of me, the part that remembered his laugh on our wedding day, the way he used to bring me coffee in bed, wavered. The war wasn't over, and I wasn't sure who I'd be when it ended. The backlash hit harder than I expected. Morning shows dissected my instability. Strangers on the street whispered as I passed. Old friends crossed to the other side of the sidewalk. For weeks, I barely left the apartment, ordering groceries online, working remotely on the few consulting gigs that hadn't vanished. The silence was loudest from Tyler, still only a possibility in this timeline. Yet the absence of the sun I'd raised felt like a phantom limb. David's counterattack had worked. He painted me as the unhinged wife, himself as the calm professional simply trying to protect his family. Vanessa played the innocent victim beautifully in interviews, dabbing at dry eyes while claiming she'd only ever tried to support both of us. Then the tide began to turn. A junior associate from David's firm, tired of watching him bully staff while preaching ethics, leaked internal memos showing he'd billed clients for hours spent with Vanessa. A hotel manager confirmed the late meetings were personal. The tabloids that had crucified me now chased him. His partners called an emergency meeting. I used the breathing room to rebuild. I took the settlement money substantial, even after his attempts to hide assets, and founded the Harper Foundation, a non-profit supporting women rebuilding after financial and emotional abuse in marriage. The first grant went to Mia, the assistant I'd unintentionally cost her job. She cried when the check arrived, then asked if she could volunteer. Within months, we had a staff of 5, all survivors. David's health deteriorated faster than the future I remembered. The experimental treatment in Switzerland failed. He moved consultations to Cedars-Sinai, closer to home, closer to me. One gray afternoon, my phone rang with an unfamiliar hospital extension. "He's asking for you," the nurse said quietly. "He doesn't have much time." I almost hung up. Instead, I drove. The private room smelled of antiseptic and defeat. Machines beeped softly. David lay propped against white pillows, thinner than I'd ever seen him, skin almost translucent. The arrogant posture was gone,
He looked small in the bed.
You came, he whispered. I stayed near the door. I'm here. Doesn't mean I forgive you. He nodded, eyes wet. I don't expect it. I just needed to say it to your face. I was terrified of dying. Vanessa made me feel alive. Like I could beat it if I just pretended hard enough. I told myself you were strong, that you'd be fine without me. A weak laugh escaped. Turns out I was the weak one. I didn't move closer. You used her to hide from the truth, and you used me to look respectable while you did it. I know. His voice cracked. I see it now. Every day. Silence stretched. Outside, rain started against the window. I'm selling the practice, he said finally. The partners made me an offer. It's fair, more than fair. I'm signing everything over to you, the house, the offshore accounts I thought you didn't know about, the vineyard, all of it. I raised an eyebrow, trying to buy absolution. No, just trying to balance the scale a little. It'll never be enough. I studied him for a long moment. Keep the house. Sell it, burn it, I don't care. The money, put it in a trust for Tyler when he's born. He'll need something that isn't poisoned by us. His eyes closed briefly. You still think about him. Every day. When I left, he was asleep. I didn't say goodbye. Vanessa's downfall came quieter, but complete. The foundation uncovered discrepancies in her nonprofit work funds, meant for foster kids routed to personal accounts. She lawyered up, but the evidence was overwhelming. The judge sentenced her to 3 years. On her way out of court, she looked straight at me and mouthed, I'm sorry. I didn't respond.
Tyler remained the hardest part. In this second chance, he hadn't been born yet. But the love I'd felt for the boy who would one day stand by while I drowned still lived in me. I channeled it into the foundation, mentoring teenagers from broken homes, making sure they knew their worth early.
One evening, Daniel Reyes David's former rival at a competing firm, now a friend, called. Dinner. No agenda, just 2 people who survived the same war. I said yes. David died 6 months later, quietly, in the same hospital room. The obituary called him a brilliant attorney cut down in his prime. It mentioned his generous final donations to cancer research and women's causes. It did not mention me. I didn't attend the funeral. Instead, I spent the day at the foundation, helping a young mother file for divorce from a man who'd controlled every dollar she earned. When she left with the papers in hand and hope in her eyes, I felt something loosen in my chest. The practice sold for more than expected. True to his word, David had restructured everything. The proceeds funded the foundation for a decade. I moved the offices to a bright space in downtown Santa Monica, windows overlooking the ocean. Daniel became a regular presence: coffee after board meetings, late dinners when deadlines ran long, quiet walks on the beach when words felt unnecessary. He never pushed, never asked about the past unless I brought it up. One night, watching the sunset from the pier, he took my hand. I'm not him, he said simply. I know. That's all I needed to hear. We didn't rush. There were still nights I woke reaching for a child who didn't exist yet. Mornings I caught myself checking old headlines out of habit. But slowly the sharp edges dulled. Vanessa served her time and disappeared. Some said Oregon, some said abroad. No one heard from her again. On the 2nd anniversary of David's death, I drove to the cemetery alone. His stone was simple, elegant, the way he'd have wanted. Fresh flowers lay at the base, white roses, probably from a former colleague keeping up appearances. I didn't bring flowers. I brought truth. You were wrong about a lot, I said to the quiet air. But you were right about one thing. I am strong. Stronger than either of us knew. I stood there until the wind picked up, carrying the scent of eucalyptus and salt. Then I walked back to my car, to the life I'd built from the ruins. That evening, Daniel cooked at my place simple pasta, good wine, laughter over a burned sauce. Later, on the balcony with the city sparkling below, he asked if I was happy. I thought about it, not the easy answer, the real one. I'm free, I said, and that's more than I ever thought I'd get. He kissed me then, slow and certain, like a promise neither of us needed to speak. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed and faded. Life went on messy, imperfect, alive. I didn't look back anymore. Not because the past was gone, but because I finally believed the future could be mine.